So we've been looking at human rights, and what we're going to look at now is to do with human rights. It's about rights that we've got during times of war. This is a set of laws called the International Humanitarian Law, or IHL. So you're probably thinking, if it's a war, everything's kind of like up in the air, nothing's normal. How on earth can you have laws at a time of war? So what you've got to think about is, if there's a conflict, if there's any kind of war, does everybody see the conflict in the same way? One side might see that they're being attacked, that they're being persecuted. Another side might see that they're being saved, or that they are trying to get rid of a really undemocratic leader. So in times of conflict, people see things in a different way. What can we do to try and help things from getting out of hand? And what rules are there? And why do you think we have to have rules when there is a war going on? So we've got different rules in all different circumstances. You've got the highway code when you're driving, you've got banking laws to protect your money, and so on and so forth. Things that distinguish right from wrong, and this is exactly the same in times of war. So soldiers are lawfully allowed to kill other soldiers, they're allowed to commit murder. But what other rules could be different then? So in peacetime, it's not acceptable to carry weapons or to attack military targets. So in war, the rules do change. There are a set of laws that are made, and as I've said, those are called the International Humanitarian Law. It doesn't actually contain rules for when it's legal to start a war. It's not about just war. It's not about whether conflict's right or wrong. It's not guidelines for resolving conflict. That's something completely different. This just presumes that there already is an armed conflict, and it gives a set of rules that need to be followed during that said conflict. It's not about whether the conflict's illegal. It's not about how they should resolve it. It's simply about the way that you are carrying yourself during the wartime. Its principles are based on humanity, so it's to try and help each of the parties respect one another as human beings. That makes it much easier to find a resolution and for atrocities not to happen. They come from the Geneva Conventions, which are a group of, I think there's 4 different agreements that were made. The biggest one being in 1949, and that's when the international humanitarian law was really solidified. They're controlled by something called the ICRC, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and that's a kind of independent organisation that's purely about human rights, about morally doing the right thing to protect humanity. So the 3 main rules of the IHL: spare civilians. In wartime, you are not allowed to attack civilians, everyday people. You are not supposed to ever go and attack villages, schools, where there are normal everyday civilians living. They should be protected. They are not the target of war. Number 2 is to spare the injured or sick. If there is a combatant, a soldier who is already injured, you are not allowed to cause them further harm. You have to leave them alone. And then the other big main rule is about sparing those who are imprisoned, so prisoners of war. If you have got some people from the other side, some combatants, some soldiers who you have as prisoners of war, you are not allowed to kill them. They are captured, they are now non-combatants, you leave them alone. And those are the 3 main rules of the IHL. If people go against them, then that can be known as war crimes, and therefore they can be taken to the International Criminal Court. You've got an exam practice on the board. 2 functions. Remember, functions means jobs or role. What is the job of international law in conflict situations? What's it there to do? 2 separate ideas. Press pause and have a go. And then if you've got time, make yourself a leaflet on the IHL. Lots of information, what it's there for, what the point of it is.